Welcome to Our Voice. I'm Lisa Carton.
And I'm Rebecca Evans, and we have a great show lined up for you today, including Super Bowl champ Tim Wrightman.
And we'll also have an interview with Stewart Wilder on a very important but serious topic, teen suicide.
And we have Kelly Nielson joining us. She's going to share her story out of Lebanon and into safety.
And finally, we'll touch base with author and National Employee Representative Spencer Cohn. If you've ever held a job, you'll want to hear this.
So stay with us. This is our very first show of Our Voice, and we're here at CenturyLink Arena. There's a lot going on here.
Including hockey.
Including hockey. Well, the whole idea of this show is to give a voice to the voiceless.
With content that counts, plus we are commercial free.
Yes, that means 28 minutes of uninterrupted dialogue with stories that matter to you.
So we thought we'd jump right into action with football. Not college football, but we have a Super Bowl champ, a Chicago Bears Superbowl champ that lives right here in Idaho.
That's right, Tim Wrightman. So he's All-American academic, All-American athlete, NFL Super Bowl champ, Hollywood superstar.
An all-around good guy.
And he planted his roots right here in Idaho. So we had a chance to go up to his ranch and visit with him, did an interview. Let's take a look at what we found out. We're here with Tim Wrightman, and we thought we would do a day in the life of a Super Bowl champion, and we landed in Weiser, Idaho, on a ranch.
Of all places.
Of all places.
Yeah.
So, and I asked you, where did you grow up? And you said?
A small town south of here.
Yeah, and
that's
so
Los
I was
Angeles.
surprised.
Yeah.
I was going, you lived in Idaho? And you're like, no,
Yeah.
Los Angeles. You grew up in Los Angeles.
I did. And so you didn't say the name of my ranch. It's the Lazy Bear Ranch.
Lazy Bear Ranch.
And that comes from, I played at UCLA. I was a football player at UCLA, and they're the Bruins. And then I got drafted by the Chicago Bears, so there's the Bears. And then my ranch is named Lazy Bear Ranch. So how I kind of came up with that, besides my history playing football on the teams that are named Bears, is that, you know, when they have like the Lazy J Ranch or the Lazy B or whatever, so I figured Lazy Bear. But yeah, it's interesting how life takes you through this journey, and I've kind of reinvented myself. When I grew up 2 blocks from the beach. So I grew up on a surfboard, not on a tractor. So then I moved to Idaho, and now I've learned how to farm, and I've learned how to catch gophers, and I've learned how to trap beavers, and I have a hunting ranch, and so it's quite a difference.
You kept adding, right. So it started with a house, then you added, what was the first thing that you added?
Well, 2 years after I built the house, I realized, I want to try this, this executive retreat centered around bird hunting. So then I had to remodel. Behind me was supposed to be a garage for a car, so then I had to make it into a kind of a lounge kind of area. Mm-hmm. Then I had to add a bathroom, and so then it's just kind of grown and grown as I've gotten more and more clients. When I first started doing the pheasant hunts about 5 years ago, I had about 20 guys out here. And then this year, 4 or 5 years later, I'll have almost over 300.
Is it posh hunting? I mean, when you say executive hunting,
well,
what is it like?
I think that you can have a clean space. What I try to do is make it as close to a wild bird hunt as possible without like all the trouble, you know. And so that's what's kind of appealed to people. I serve a great lunch. It's a safe environment. They like watching my dogs work, or they can bring their own dogs out. And so it's just kind of grown. I've been lucky, and word of mouth has really been great.
So let's go to your acting career.
Acting career?
Your
okay.
acting career.
My acting hobby?
Your acting hobby. So tell us some parts that you played. I know you were on Baywatch. Right? And you were almost on Who's the Boss?
I was almost on Who's the Boss.
Yeah,
I was on Walker, Texas Ranger. Those shows in Hollywood, there was a couple of them where I'm almost 6'4", so the parts that I generally got as an actor was I either hit people, I got hit, or I was the guy that was gay, but you never thought he was gay. You know, those seem to be like my little niche. And so my friend was a director, and he tried to get me on Walker, Texas Ranger for the longest time. but he couldn't because that was an under 6 show. Only actors under 6 feet tall could audition for that show. Like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, she was very tiny, like 5 foot tall kind of thing. So he gives me this part only because of the fact that Chuck Norris was okay being in scenes as long as he was beating up people taller than 6 feet, so I got to get beat up.
You got beat up by Chuck Norris.
Right. Yeah. So, that's a claim to fame, Chuck Norris beating me up. But the only love scene that I ever got to do was with Sybil Shepherd, because she's actually very tall. So they got me, a tall, big guy, to make her look more petite.
Lieutenant, I have to warn you. Having sex with me is like nuclear war. When I'm done, there's nothing left standing.
Well, Captain, you'd better be ready for multiple warheads.
Now I saw, didn't you do a striptease too? Sort of?
Yes, Rebecca, I did. We don't have to go down that road, do we? But actually, that was kind of a funny thing.
It was a dancing one, which you didn't do the Super Bowl shuffle, but you did a striptease.
Right. So I've done more
Hollywood.
Embarrassing things than the Super Bowl shuffle. Yeah.
Right.
But it was kind of interesting because that part, they had a guy named Fabio, who was the Italian guy that's on the I Can't Believe It's Butter kind of thing.
Right.
And they had hired him, but he had such a thick accent, Italian accent, they couldn't understand him for the show. So my first real big part, I had been doing commercials, and my first big part. So I go in and I audition, I get the part, I'm all excited, and then I'm reading the part and the whole script, and Thor walks in and starts doing his striptease. I'm like, I didn't know this character did a striptease.
So you were Thor with long hair,
doing a striptease, taking Fabio's part.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was less embarrassing than the Super Bowl shuffle?
No, I figured, it was my first real acting job. I figured if I can get through this, I can do anything. And I've been pretty good about I've done some stand-up and I've done some really embarrassing things. So I'll do anything, almost anything for a joke.
So you're going to take us around and tour now, right?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go.
This picture here was of me we were playing the Green Bay Packers, and I love this picture because Jim McMahon's laying down here on the ground.
He's on the ground.
And then for once in his life, he's standing there watching me run. I mean, I was so slow that I had a better chance, as you can see, of trying to run over the guy than to run by him. So I figured if I could run over him, I had a better chance. This is my coach, the head coach of the Bears when I played, Mike Ditka. This is at training camp, pushing him on the sled. And the interesting thing about that was Mike Ditka was a tight end also. So whenever we would watch film, the first thing he would always look at would be the tight end position. So you either got his wrath or his praise.
Super Bowl trophy, also known as
The Lombardi Trophy.
The Lombardi Trophy, Vince Lombardi. Tell me a little bit. I mean, this is your personal one, right?
Right. Yeah. The teams give. This is a player's version of the Lombardi Trophy. So the one you see, after the game that the quarterback is usually holding up, or the team owner, it's about another third bigger than this one.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got some footballs here.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit. These are all your wins, it looks like. 46-10. Well, not all of them, but a few captured moments.
So what would happen is that Ditka, the head coach, after the game would award game balls to the offensive player of the game or the defensive player of the game. This is my first NFL touchdown reception, which was the only touchdown reception, which means that, you never even played in the NFL, and I only have one more touchdown than you do. So that's kind of sad.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for taking your entire day having us here and really showing us a day in the life of a Super Bowl champ. Who knew that you'd be out here in the middle of Idaho? I mean, really just creating a haven. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
And I really love it. And the stories, I just feel like I walked through a historical museum of football. But you have threaded stories throughout your work here, and I think that's why it feels so peaceful and like home, because you've really done a great job just threading your life and sharing it. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I had so much fun being able to visit Tim up at his ranch.
Looks like you had a great time. He's got a huge spread. Seems like he does a lot for the community.
He does, and he does a lot academically for kids. So he goes out and talks to athletes about keeping their academic scores up. which I think is really powerful.
That's
It's
awesome.
a powerful message. So if you want to take a break and go visit Tim, go to his website, lazybearranch.com. You can find out more information there.
And coming up, we're talking about a serious issue that our Idaho teens are facing. You'll be surprised as we share with you some shocking stats about teen suicide.
Most of us know that Idaho ranks in the top 10 when it comes to one of the best places to live. But what most of us aren't aware of is that Idaho also ranks in the top 10 when it comes to suicide, specifically teen suicide. So we've asked Stewart Wilder from the Live Wilder Foundation to join us and share with us the challenges our teens are facing and also some of the solutions. So welcome, Stewart.
Thank you.
And I wanted to start off and say we do have hockey playing in the background because we're at the CenturyLink Arena here. So you have to just excuse the noise. But tell us a little bit about the Live Wilder Foundation. Let's start off there. How did it get its start?
Thank you. The Live Wilder Foundation was founded shortly after the loss of our 17-year-old son Cameron to suicide on September 8th, 2013. The Live Wilder name actually came sort of almost spontaneously from the kids in the school. It spread like wildfire through social media. Kids were writing on the desk. And it was all sort of the way that Cameron lived his life, to treat other people, to make people smile, don't be cruel to other people. So it really just kind of took off and sort of branded itself. So in the process of developing the foundation, our goal is to advance zero suicide for our youth populations through awareness, education, and the direction to treatment around the disease of depression.
So you have taken a tragic situation and you're empowering others, really being an advocate to help create awareness. Thank you for doing that.
Yes.
I know the journey's been daunting at best.
And there is also a policy component to it, and working with the legislature on initiatives, as suicide prevention is the key area in healthcare for the state of Idaho, that we're looking to make some changes around mental health in general. So.
That is fantastic. I think one of the burning questions is really, how do you recognize potential suicide? And especially in teens, is it a little bit different because teens develop differently than adults do?
The signs are different. There's so many warning signs. I mean, there's literally thousands to look for. Some of the key things, and in our experience with talking with other parents, is really when it comes to withdrawal. Oftentimes kids, they've become so disconnected. A lot of it's around social media, losing friendships, taking things a little bit too hard on themselves. But kids who aren't sleeping, or either sleeping too much or not enough, is certainly can be a warning sign that something's going on. And oftentimes kids will talk a lot about wanting to die, or have very bad thoughts, and they can express them in writing or through text messages to other kids. So it becomes sort of a culture, and what we're trying to do is to allow the kids to understand that they need to have 3 trusted adults to be able to reach out if they're thinking that they're having any issues, so that they know that there's help beyond looking to your friends for help, because friends of friends are not trained for this kind of thing. So it's very complex.
It sounds to me like if you hear of a teen in trouble, you need to take it seriously. You need to take the warning signs seriously. And sometimes the warning signs aren't there. I mean, that's a problem too. So then we talked a little bit beforehand about monitoring your teen, which is a really uncomfortable position for parents, but I think you have to find that gentle balance. What is your opinion about that?
The ability to listen to your child is really critical. So many times as parents, we want to lecture our kids, which if a kid's in a really difficult place, that's not the time to lecture. It's a time to be with them, to know there's somebody else in the room, get me through this bad moment. Maybe we watch a movie, or we just sit quietly together just to get through that bad period. The next day, getting them through that difficult period is the follow-up, to get them into treatment, get them into proper screening, and see really kind of what's going on, so that a solution on treatment can be followed up.
So where can people go to get more information and to get some support and help?
The first place to start, obviously, if anyone's in crisis, is to contact the Idaho Suicide Prevention Hotline number. And I would also encourage going to the Live Wilder Foundation webpage at livewilder.org. The American Foundation of Suicide Prevention website at afsp.org is also a great resource. It's a national suicide prevention organization, and there's great resources available on those websites, as well as the Suicide Prevention Action Network of Idaho. So there are resources out there, and I would encourage parents and teens alike to go out and just kind of look and see what is out there. There's great downloadable documents that would address warning signs for youth, warning signs that parents should be looking for, those kind of things.
So the resources are available, and you really have a list of the resources on your website too,
Yes.
livewilder.org. Right?
Yes.
So thank you so much for being here. I know it's not easy for you to share your story, but I really appreciate you coming on the set and being an advocate to help prevent teen suicide.
Thank you, Rebecca.
So coming up next, we have Kelly Nielson, who shares her terrifying yet courageous journey. You're going to want to stay tuned.
If you've ever been in a position where you felt helpless, trapped, or without options, you certainly can relate to our next guest. Kelly Nielson shares her terrifying yet ultimately inspiring experience, and she shares her ordeal as she fled the country of Lebanon with her children. She's also the author of the book I'll Fly Away, which documents her whole entire ordeal. Welcome, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How did you get into Lebanon? How did you get there?
That's a really good question, and that's one that I often ask myself many times when I was in Beirut. It all began in college, where I was going to Idaho State University, and I met my ex-husband Ibrahim there. He was studying pharmacy, I was studying business. We met at an international festival, and we quickly fell in love. We started dating, and he told me he was from Lebanon, and I had no idea at that point where even Lebanon was. And then when he told me he was Muslim, my only point of reference in the early 80s was Lawrence of Arabia, so I got all caught up in the whirlwind of romance and all that.
So you had the you had the initial courtship.
Yes.
You fell in love.
Yes.
And this was all here.
Yes, in Pocatello. And he quickly pushed marriage, so we eloped immediately, probably within 4 or 5 months of meeting each other. And my parents were really upset about it, and then 5 years later we had our daughter Layla. And at this point he was married in my church, and he agreed to raise my children Christian, because I'm Christian. But after I had Layla, he decided that he didn't want to raise her Christian, he wanted to raise her Muslim. In hindsight's 20/20 vision, and I realized that Muslims have to raise their children Muslims. And hindsight's also 20/20 vision. He was in such a hurry to marry me because he was in his last year, and his visa card was about to expire.
Did he have discussions about moving back to his country?
No, never. It was never even an issue. He came to America, he said he loved America. But
At what point did things begin to change?
well, in medical school, he was finished with his medical degree, and then he was finishing up his residency, and there was an allegation from a female patient. And so it went to the medical board and all of this. And so they denied him his license because of the lawsuit, that the claims and stuff that she was making. So at this point, he became very angry at America, very angry at everybody else except himself. So he started complaining to his family who were overseas, and they told him to come over there and open up a pharmacy or become a doctor.
So this became a very quick decision
Yeah.
with your children and your new husband.
Yes.
And
we
then
were married at 13 years at that time. Well, he came to me and said, I want to move to Beirut and go over there. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not going over there to live. And he said, fine. He goes, I'm going to take Layla next month to go over to my country and visit my family. And I said, you're going to take Layla by yourself? And he said, yes. And I said, I didn't say anything at that point. He went to work the next morning. I got on the phone with the American Bureau of Consular Affairs, and I asked them what my options were to stop him from traveling with my daughter. And she said, does he have dual citizenship? And I said, yes, he does. And she said, there's no exit controls in America. He can travel with your daughters on a Lebanese passport, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So you ended up beginning a life in Lebanon.
Yes.
And how is that?
It was a downward spiral from the very beginning, but once we got over there, I wasn't allowed to drive. I wasn't allowed to work. I couldn't leave the family apartment building without a male chaperone. When I first went over there, I was expecting a hero's welcome from his family. I thought, I left my country, I left my family, and I was ostracized from the very beginning. And the biggest reason was because I didn't convert to Islam. This family started pressuring me to convert, and that didn't work. My poor daughter, Layla, he put her in an Islamic school, and she was spit at, and she was bullied, and she was made fun of because she had an American mother.
So at some point, things began to fast forward and spiral out of control.
Yes.
And you realized, at what point did you have to flee?
Well, it was at the point when his mother started parading young female virgins in front of him, to marry, because they are allowed to marry 4 women. And also, it came to a head when he sat me down one day and he said, "My family's not accepting you. You don't understand our ways." He goes, "They don't accept you for 3 reasons. Number 1, you're American. Number 2, you're Christian. And number 3, you're not even Arabic."
So you decide at one point, I need to get out.
Yes.
This is a bad situation for
Yes.
myself, my children, my entire family. I need to go back to America. How did you flee?
It's a long story how I got out, honestly. There were many failed attempts. For women that want to get out, that are still in those situations, it's completely different than over here if you want to divorce your husband and leave, because we have basic rights here as women in America that we take for granted. Or under Sharia law in those countries, they don't have it. I mean, a man can have 4 wives without the others knowing about it. You can only have 1. They can have temporary pleasure marriages, which in my mind is prostitution. You can marry a woman for 1 hour and divorce her. But in Islam, it's a contract. That's where they pay you a dowry for the right to use you exclusively sexually. So it's a completely different concept. And if you want a divorce over there, the children always belong to the men.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring experience.
Well, thank you.
And where can we get a copy of your book, I'll Fly Away?
Well, now it's available everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, ebook, Nook, iBook. So.
Well, thank you for sharing just a little bit of your inspiring story, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
If you've ever had problems at your workplace, or maybe have trouble collecting unemployment benefits, our next guest, Spencer Cohn, has some terrific information for you. Stay with us.
Navigating workplace issues can be daunting for most of us, so we've invited Spencer Cohn. He's the author of Beat the Boss. He's also a national blogger for Credit.com and also a national employee representative. So I'm so excited to have you here. You're going to inspire and inform us about work-related issues.
Well, first of all, you mentioned Beat the Boss. It's Beat the Boss, win in the workplace.
Win in the workplace.
There's a lot of people that want to beat the boss, I assure you.
So that does take a different meaning. So tell us first, what is a national employee representative?
Well, what I do is I represent employees across the country. When they lose their job and they file for unemployment benefits, I represent them at their unemployment hearings. These people, a lot of lawyers, a lot of attorneys don't want to represent people that have just lost their job because they don't have the resources to pay for an attorney. I brand myself as a national employee representative. It's a little bit gentler and easier for somebody who's just lost their job to understand exactly what I do.
Right, and I think that's really, critical. I mean, people don't really have a lot of information when it comes to unemployment. So what's something that we don't know that we should know when it comes to unemployment?
Well, first of all, a lot of people come to me and tell me that they're entitled to their unemployment benefits and they pay their taxes. The only person that really pays the taxes for unemployment is the employer. There are some states that share that tax where the employee does pay part and the employer pays part, such as New Jersey, for instance. But generally, most states, it's the employer who's paying into a slush fund, and if they lose an employee, that employer will try to defend themselves from having to pay the unemployment tax and let that tax increase if that claimant is successful with their claim.
So it's the employer that's making money or saving money by not paying.
They're
for
trying to
right?
save money by,
They're
trying to save money to contest the claim.
Right, okay.
And so that their unemployment tax rate doesn't increase.
Now, one of the things you shared with me that I thought was fascinating was you could quit your job and still qualify for unemployment, which,
right.
Explain this, because it
Nobody,
doesn't sound right. Yeah.
Nobody gets that, and,
Yeah.
and the whole world should know.
Okay,
You can
we're
quit
telling
your job.
the whole world.
You can quit your job if you feel that your employer is bullying you, taking advantage of you, not paying you what they're supposed to be paying you. When you get hired, they give you a job description, and then maybe 2 weeks after you get hired, they add all these other responsibilities. And you say, wait, I didn't sign up for all this.
Right,
But the
and
problem...
people absorb other positions once they're on the job, right? Pretty soon you're doing 3 or 4 jobs. Right?
Correct. But the problem is, just as an employer, when they fire you, they build a record. and then finally say, we're letting you go, and here's why. We've given you a verbal warning, we've given you 2 written warnings.
Right, all the documentation.
And now you've done this, and we're letting you go. Well, the same thing applies for the employer. If you have a problem at the workplace, you document it. And you say, listen, I went to the employer on such and such a day, and I complained about such and such person. And the response was, I will handle this, I will take care of it. That's what kept the person staying to work. If the employer did not give the reasonable assurance that they would be working, that they would take care of the problem, the employee would have quit then.
Right.
So what the employee does is they wait, and they say, okay, you're going to take care of it. And then they finally, it happens again. And then they can say, look, I've gone to the employer on such and such day. His response was he was going to take care of the problem. He didn't take care of the problem. And now it's happened again. And now I find out that nothing's going to change. That gives right for the employee to quit their job.
And still possibly collect unemployment.
Correct.
Right. Our Voice Idaho, you go to our Facebook page and you can participate in a conversation. So Spencer, tell me, this is from Kathy in Meridian. She wants to know, my employer keeps asking me to work late after hours without any notice. What should she do?
Happens all the time.
This happens all the time.
And what happens is the employer makes you feel bad. That
That's the
if you're
guilt trip.
you're not a loyal employee.
Or you might lose your job if you don't
don't step up and do this. The problem is when you're hired, and these people that finally get a job, they might have been out of work for a year, 6 months or more, and they say, gee, you're going to give me a paycheck. I'll sign whatever it is you want me to sign. And they give, we want you to sign the acknowledgement that you received the handbook. Well, I've never read the handbook, the employee says, but I'll sign it because I'm getting a paycheck. And in that handbook, it might say you're to work anytime the employer comes to you and tells you need to work. Well, instead, you should be writing, wait a minute, I don't understand this.
Or write that.
And write it on the handbook and put your
sign.
initials on there and get a copy of it. And put in there, look, I'll work 2 or 3 times, a reasonable amount of time, but I need 3 days notice if you're going to spring that on me.
So for Kathy in Meridian, we don't know if she's already obligated herself to be at the beck and call of her.
We don't know that.
Okay, so if people want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you for more information?
Well, they can, number of ways, 866-805-9492.
Okay.
You can find me on Twitter at The Work Whiz. You can go to Beat the Boss, Spencer at beattheboss.tv. And anytime, or you can go to credit.com. I always answer questions on credit.com.
And you'll be answering questions on our Facebook page as well, which is Our Voice Idaho. So if you have questions, you can go there and post them too. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are here at CenturyLink Arena, and if you've ever wondered how they do it all, they change the ice to a stage. We went and found out their secret. We're going to share the magic with you, so stay with us.
Now we know.
And you do too. We have so many stories that we want to share on Our Voice, and we want you to be a part of it. So go to our Facebook page, Our Voice Idaho, share your voice, share your perspective.
And share your opinions.
That's right. And until next time,
I'm Lisa Carton.
and I'm Rebecca Evans. We'll see you on Our Voice.